Back on the F250 today. We're going to be doing some bushings in the front end. Mostly the radius rod bushing at the back, and if we can get to it, the swing arm bushings. These are a pretty typical item to wear out on these trucks. So these are the new ones. So I got the washers and a new nut and everything all at once. Probably only really need the bushings, but it was cheap because, I don't know, they ran these probably the same bushings for 30 years on these trucks. And might as well just do it all. And then these little oval ones are supposed to be the radius rod or radius arm, but we'll see. Now I already pulled the nut and washer off of this side. However, as you can see, there is no bushing left on the back side, and the front one is pretty dry rotted and cracked. And if we zoom in on the passenger side of the truck, you can see that great big gap in that bushing over there where at least it's still present, but there's probably almost ½ inch of slop. So yeah, these things definitely need to get replaced. Starting with the driver's side, I'm jacking up on the pivot for the passenger side to make sure that the driver's side will droop. You're going to have to remove the spring. I was hoping just to winch it forward enough for it to drop out. Doesn't even get close. So spring comes out with a little retainer clip bolt that's up here. It's just a 9/16 and then wherever the clip dropped to. At which point you got a big nut on top of this bolt that needs to come out that's retaining the bottom. And then before you get too gung-ho, there's another secret nut underneath the cup. Oh, that needs to come out as well, so that we can drop this bolt out and be able to use this window at the front of the radius arm to slide it forward, hopefully enough to get it out. Well, boss man said I was doing it wrong. Yeah, he said I had to move the jack to the cross member because otherwise it was blocking our movement. We also needed to disconnect the shock so that it wasn't holding us back and get just a little more height, so now we can have this whole arm swing around easy. And at this point we are far enough apart, I might as well just pull the single bolt holding that radius rod and change that bushing immediately also. This is definitely more disassembled than I thought we were going to have to get for those bushings, but whatever, we're here. Now with that I-beam pulled out, just taking the hammer and the chisel and bending that edge over a little bit, trying to get it to start moving and coming out. The metal's moving fairly easy. I think everything's just seized in there, so if I get enough of it hit out of the way, it should come out pretty easy. But yeah, we're just really, a tie rod's the only thing holding us up here from just taking the entire thing out of the truck. I really don't want to keep diving farther into it today with going into the steering, because the steering's gonna have to be its own thing, because you can see how much it leaks. So we kind of need a box rebuild and probably a pump rebuild just to take care of all that stuff. And I know the steering's a little sloppy, something in there's loose. I just do not want to try to dive into all of that today. On another note, we got our new washer and our old washer, and almost predictably we have the new washer doesn't quite fit. So I don't know if it's just intended to be that tight of a fit on there. I don't know. I'm just going to grind the insides a little. I was a little worried that the bushings were the wrong size then, but they do push on. It's just pretty tight of a fit, so we'll figure that one out. Just being able to push them on later, it shouldn't be a problem, because I can always get it started and then put it back in there and then push on the front of the radius rod in order to use this as kind of a press for that bushing and get it to go. So that's the new joint in. I ended up having to kind of break and drive out the center just the way it was moving. But once the rubber was out, it was easy to fold in the shell part way until it just pushed itself out. As you can see, I'm using a ball joint tool. These are generic ones that you get at the parts store. I added the flat plate in order to push on the bushing evenly so I wasn't like trying to shove out the center or something goofy like that. And then it was the second size just to clear and get around, and it's just small enough to catch all the way around on the diameter. Like, it's pretty close, but it works great. So, and then a little finagling to get that thing lined up because of the oval shape, but once it started, it cruised right in, no problem. So I did spray some penetrating fluid on it just to lubricate it on the way in. It worked great. All right, that new washer, just chased with a 15/16 drill. It's like a little just extra material folded over from it being stamped out to get that curvature. Now to get it to line up, you can kind of see I'm trying to level out the arm. You get a better idea if we look from the front. You can see I'm trying to get that radius arm level with the hole because it'll make putting the bolt in up on the I-beam much easier, as well as getting that bushing through the back. Hey boss, do we need to check whether or not we're lowering the truck today also? We threw the other spring on, but now we gotta compare sides. Yeah? So, unlowered side. I think it's even pulled down slightly just because the other side has the lowering spring. And the side that is lowered. Tuck and tire for sure. It's a big amount of lowering. I don't know how it's doing on camber though, because I know it's going to gain quite a bit. It doesn't look terrible from this angle, but the truck's also leaned over. Can I have the camera back? Can I have the camera back? Thank you. So yeah, anyway, I don't know, it's quite low. I'm not sure if I like it or not. I want to check the suspension travel. I don't want it to be way too low on suspension travel kind of a thing. But it would be cool to lower it because it's two-wheel drive, so I'll probably do the other side. I know the spring is a little different on top, so I can't like clamp the spring in like the stock one because the bend is a little different on top. So whether or not these are the right springs for the job, I don't know. They came with the truck, but I'm not too worried about a ton of camber because there was a crap ton of camber on my 96 F150 and that thing never wore the tires weird. So I think we're okay there. Oh yeah, one more thing to note. So I did not use that new nut because for some reason the new nut is inch in 3/32 instead of inch in 1/8 like the old nut. I don't even have a socket that size, much less a wrench. You could probably get away with a 28mm, although it would be kind of loose, but I also don't have a 28mm. So, whatever, I'm just going to chalk that one up to it's a close enough nut to sell to people as new, but it's not the right nut. So, I just don't want to be, you know, whatever I decide to do later on and then have that thing actually be kind of seized on there and then not have a socket the right size and it turned into this whole thing. So just put the old nut back on and not going to worry about it. Well, we're not lowering the truck today. I don't know what it is about those springs. They're obviously too short and maybe too soft. Because when I did check the suspension on the driver's side after that, it was literally parked on the bump stop. So I'd rather have suspension instead of none. Definitely gonna have to lower it in a different way. I know there's, you know, drop I-beams and stuff like that. That probably is something that has to happen. There's no way in heck I'm paying $900 or something. Like, they're not cheap. Like, I'll fabricate my own for way less than that if I have to. But for the time being, I'm gonna tackle the other side, get these bushings swapped out, and that'll probably be it for today's project. Time on this. The first side, not knowing what all I had to take apart, took significantly longer. I don't know, I probably had an hour and a half, 2 hours at least. Well, no. Yeah. So I was working on other stuff this morning. So yeah, I probably had an hour and a half into it of just, you know, screwing around, getting to the point where I could change out everything. One other piece of advice, that bushing on the swing arm, the first one that I did had kind of more of a rolled edge, and it started in no problem. I mean, other than it being just a little bit of cocked and like tapping on the side a little bit, worked great. But the second one I fought with, and eventually I just took the new bushing, went over, put a chamfer all the way around the lead-in side. That way it would get started, and then on the arm itself I took a file just to break that edge, and then it went in perfect, no problem. So that's probably just a good thing to do in practice to make it a lot quicker and easier. But otherwise, yeah, we got fresh bushings all the way around on the front suspension anyway. So yeah, looks way better. So we actually have bushings instead of a huge amount of play. I don't know how much this is actually going to change the handling of the truck. Not that handling is something the truck does. But it should be safer and drive better. Anyway, I don't know. These things are pretty robust. They can be worn out and still function just fine. So, but just wanted to take care of this because it's definitely a maintenance item that needs to be done.